Today on LawNext, I sit down with Sean Fitzpatrick, the CEO of LexisNexis North America, UK, and Ireland, to discuss one of the most talked about developments in legal technologies so far this year, the announcement of a strategic alliance between LexisNexis and Harvey, the legal AI company that's been making waves in the industry for its rapid growth. Just a few weeks ago, LexisNexis announced it would integrate its primary law content, its Shepard citations, and its AI technology directly into Harvey's platform. This partnership comes on the heels of Harvey's remarkable Series E funding round not long before, raising $300 million at a $5 billion valuation, and that came just after its Series D round, also of $300 million, but at a mere $3 billion valuation. In both rounds, there was participation from the investment arm of RELX, LexisNexis's parent company. So what's really driving this alliance? In our conversation today, Fitzpatrick reveals that it wasn't a boardroom strategy session that sparked this partnership, but rather customer demand from large law firms seeking the combined power of LexisNexis's authoritative legal content and Harvey's AI capabilities. In today's conversation, we're going to dive deep into what this means for the future of legal AI, how it addresses the persistent challenge of hallucinations in AI-generated content, and whether we're witnessing the emergence of a new model for legal tech partnerships. Fitzpatrick also shares insights from recent ROI studies showing dramatic productivity gains for both law firms and corporate legal departments using AI tools. I'm Bob Ambrogi, and this is LawNext, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. Before we get to any of that, please take a moment to learn about the sponsors whose generosity keeps this podcast running. Unlock the full potential of your practice with Bill for Time, the leading time and billing software designed to streamline your firm effortlessly. Bill for Time automates your time tracking with multiple timers, standardizes your invoicing with custom templates, and gets your firm paid up to 70% faster with built-in online payment processing. Focus on what you do best and not on your task list. Discover how Bill for Time can help you work more efficiently by visiting billfortime.com. You didn't go to law school to waste time writing and responding to discovery requests. Never waste time on discovery again with BriefPoint. BriefPoint drafts your discovery responses and requests for documents within minutes of your first sign-in. BriefPoint is the most reliable discovery drafting solution on the market, and it works right out of the box. Get your first document drafted by going to briefpoint.ai and clicking Get Started. No credit card required. BriefPoint. Draft what matters, automate the rest. Now let's get to today's conversation. Sean Fitzpatrick, welcome to LawNext.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Looking forward to speaking to you. I don't know how I've gone this long without getting you on the podcast before, but I'm looking forward to this conversation today.
I am as well.
Good. A lot of stuff I want to talk about, but I thought let's launch into some of the most current news that's happened over the last couple of weeks, and probably what had people buzzing the most was the announcement roughly about a week ago as we're speaking today. It was announced on June 18th that LexisNexis and the legal AI company Harvey had entered into a strategic alliance by which Harvey will integrate LexisNexis primary law content, Shepard citations, some Gen AI technology, all within their platform. I guess no sooner did that happen than just yesterday, Harvey announced yet another raise, a Series E raise of $300 million at a whopping $5 billion valuation, just a couple of months after it had announced another $300 million raise at a $3 billion valuation then. And in both of those recent rounds, one of the investors was the venture capital arm of the RELX group that owns LexisNexis. Between the strategic alliance with Harvey, the investments in Harvey of your parent group, what's going on here? I mean, is this the art of war of keeping your friends close and your enemies closer?
Oh, I definitely wouldn't describe it that way.
I don't think it would. But.
We, we've been brought together by our customers, really. It's our customers that have said, hey, LexisNexis, you're doing some really great things on the AI front. You've got, this incredible authoritative content collection, and Harvey's doing some really good things too. And we think that if you guys came together and did some things jointly, that those would even create more value for us, your customers. And so we actually worked with a large law firm and did a pilot and co-developed a product together for them. I don't have permission to release their name, but a very large, well-known law firm. And it was a really great success, and we enjoyed working together with the Harvey folks, and we were able to create value for our customers and kind of prove out this concept. And so then we decided to take it to the next level.
So are you saying that it wasn't somebody at LexisNexis cooked up this idea or somebody at Harvey cooked up this idea, but literally one of your clients somehow came to both of you and said, man, if you could make this work, it would be great?
Yeah, it's our customers that are asking for it.
Yeah, interesting. So do you see a strategic advantage for you or a strategic logic for you in entering into this partnership with them? I mean, well, let me ask you that first.
Well, yeah, I think we've got some great capabilities. When customers log into the Harvey product, they're going to see the Protege Ask function. And, we've been talking about this connected world strategy with you and with others for years now, 6 or 7 years. And, we want to be where our customers are. In a lot of cases, that means in our core ecosystem, right? That's the place that we like to see them most, but that's not always where they are, right? They spend a lot of time in Microsoft Word, for example. And so we've done some integrations into the Microsoft Word platform. They've been spending more time in Harvey lately, and they're interested in seeing us in Harvey. So it's just an extension of kind of our broader strategy.
Part of what had people have their jaws dropped a little bit at the announcement of this partnership was that I think people viewed LexisNexis and Harvey as competitors in the market, and here you are forming a strategic alliance. Do you see them as a competitor?
Harvey has a little over 300 customers, and almost all of Harvey's customers are LexisNexis customers also. So I see our products as being complementary. And I think our customers see them as complementary as well, because they're buying both.
There was obviously some coverage of this recently, and my legal reporting colleague Richard Tromans over at Artificial Lawyer wrote about the Harvey and LexisNexis strategic alliance as, quote, possibly the most important legal tech move in a decade. How do you rank it? How do you see it? Do you think he's on to something there?
Well, I see it as an extension of what we're trying to do. Our vision is that every lawyer is going to have their own personal AI assistant. That assistant is going to understand their practice area, the jurisdiction that they work in. It's going to understand their preferences and their style. It's going to have access to prior work product. It's going to have access to our collection of, one of the world's largest collections of authoritative legal materials. And it's going to be able to automate tasks, use AI to automate tasks for them that they used to do manually. And if you think about all the different types of lawyers and all the different tasks that exist within their workflows, there are tens of thousands of them, right? And so, we see us automating a lot of those tasks to make them more efficient and hopefully to improve the quality of them. And that's what we're doing with this Harvey Alliance as well. So there's no shortage of work to be done here. So doing some work together is great. I'm sure Harvey will continue to do work on their own. We'll continue to do work on our own as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting market right now, obviously, for any number of reasons. There was also just a post in the last couple of weeks from another legal tech commentator, Zach Abramowitz. I'm sure you run across him, but where he wrote about Harvey in his Substack newsletter, and the kind of the point of his article was to suggest that Harvey had also already won exactly what I wasn't entirely clear, but that Harvey has achieved this amazing degree of traction and penetration in a short amount of time. They've been in business for 3 years, pretty much. LexisNexis has been around a few more years than that. I mean, do you see that this in this sort of terms of somebody is going to come out on top in the AI agentic task space for legal, or is it way too early to be calling winners and losers here?
It's hard to say. It's hard to predict what's going to happen in the future. So I don't know. I think it's a little early, premature to declare a winner.
Yeah. I know that when you presented at Legal Week in New York, not all that long ago, seems like a long time ago now, you really were talking a lot about Protege and what that could enable and what capabilities it could enable. And I think one of my, I think I might have mentioned this either in writing or in a question or something, but one of my takeaways at the time was that there were a number of different companies all kind of saying, look, we're going to be your platform of choice for AI-driven legal assistant, for agentic workflows, for that sort of thing. And this relationship with Harvey seems to take that in a different direction, to say it doesn't matter whether you're working on the LexisNexis platform so much as long as you're using our tools wherever you can get them. Is that fair to say?
Well, yeah, I think to some extent, we want to be where our customers are and where they're working. We still think that the LexisNexis platform, Lexis Plus AI, is a great place for them to work. And we expect that they will probably do a lot of their work there, but it's not the only place. And so, we want to very carefully and selectively position ourselves. But, I think that there's a gap that exists, a kind of a trust gap that exists in the market right now with all of these AI products. We have a really high threshold for veracity in legal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, issues like hallucinations are a very, very big deal for us. And that threshold really isn't being met. And I think, what law firms are looking for is they're looking for all the benefits that they can get, the productivity benefits that they can get from these AI tools, but they can't sacrifice the accuracy, the credibility, the professional standards. And so they need to have tools that can link that content back or link back rather to authoritative content. And I think that's one of the things that differentiates us. And now Harvey customers are going to be able to link back to, they're going to be able to link back to statutes. They're going to be able to check a case, with our citator, with Shepard's, to make sure that it's still good law. And I think that's going to help them kind of bridge some of that gap that's been missing.
Yeah. Could you walk through a little bit more about what that strategic partnership actually means for Harvey's customers? Because I know that just in talking to some of my legal tech reporting colleagues last week, we felt we weren't entirely clear on what that is. I mean, can you maybe walk through how, say, Protege functions will be available inside Harvey? What aspects of it are there? What aspects of it might not be there and might have to require you to go back to LexisNexis?
Yeah, it's not completely built yet. It's a long ways towards being built. So, can't tell you exactly, but the vision that we're working on, it's going to look a lot like this. I'm just saying it may not be perfect, but you'll have the Ask Protege functionality within Harvey. So you'll be able to type in a legal research question. That question will then be transmitted to our service through an API, and our AI technology will, evaluate that question and come back with the most appropriate answer. And that answer will be served back up in the Harvey platform for Harvey customers. And then if there are links to that content, which, that's an important part of this, right, is being able to link back to the content, they'll be able to click on those links and they'll be able to go into Lexis Plus AI. And if they are a Lexis Plus AI subscriber, they'll have access to all of the secondary content, everything that they would have access to, all of our AI features, all of our practical guidance. If they're not a Lexis subscriber, then they'll have just access to a very slim subset of the functionality that exists within our product. But it will still be some important things, right? I mean, case law, statutes, Shepards. Those are really, really important things. So while it's a slice, it's a really important slice that they're getting.
And then another aspect of this will be that you will be jointly developing workflows around certain document creation tasks, like creating a motion to dismiss or summary judgment and that sort of
Yes.
thing, right? Yeah. So, and that's also yet to be built out. That's something you'll be working on.
Yeah, those are will be built out and be available by the end of the year this year. So we're working on those, but yeah, so those will also include our primary law. They'll include that case law. They'll include the statutes and then that Shepard's capability in those products as well.
A question that's come up a lot is to what extent this strategic alliance with Harvey came about because of your parent company's investment in Harvey. Are there ties there?
Really, it's the opposite. The investment came as a result of us working with the Harvey folks. We pointed the Rev team to Harvey. So it wasn't like that they came to us and made some investments and then asked us to work with them. It was us working with them saying, hey, this is a company you might want to take a look at.
So you were working on this strategic alliance before February or whenever that last round came about, the Series D round came about.
We've been working on some pilot stuff with them for a while, yeah.
Yeah. Does this now become a model for you to work with other vendors in the legal space or other AI vendors in the legal space?
Yeah, it's potentially. We're just getting our feet wet on this one, right? So we kind of let's see how this goes, and we'll see where what we expand to.
Yeah, I wanted to stop talking about Harvey for a minute and turn to something else. I know that you recently, or Forrester, I guess recently, you worked with Forrester to do a study of, I guess, ROI in law firms from using Lexis Plus AI, and that came out, I think, last month or so. And then, as we're speaking, by the time this is posted, you will have posted another study looking at corporate legal departments and the ROI for corporate legal departments. And maybe starting with law firms, I think the study suggested a pretty significant impact in terms of ROI, that it was 344% ROI over 3 years for law firms from using a tool, from using Lexis Plus AI. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit? I mean, what's driving that ROI for law firms, and what did the study indicate about why that is?
Yeah, so you're right on the numbers and kind of the detail behind it, and the reports available. So we, people can take a look at the information behind it. But there are a couple
I'll
of
put the
big
link in the
drivers
write-up for this.
So one of them is around unbillable time that gets written off. So law firms have a lot of time that they write off as they get ramped up on these new projects, just getting their grounding in place, and they can't bill that time. With the generative AI products, that amount of time has been reduced, which means reduced write-offs. That's a big driver of those economics. Another is the amount of time that folks save doing legal research. So, an associate might save 2 or 3 hours a week doing research. Someone that's does a lot of intense, like a heavy researcher, might save 4 to 6 hours a week, and that's another big driver of the economics. But yeah, the report indicates people get a really good return, and actually that was done before Protege. So now with Protege and the continued enhancements, we expect to drive additional value.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are some of the? I mean, you mentioned research, and you mentioned some of those non-billable issues. Are there other kinds of tasks that you're seeing as the ones where law firms are getting the biggest boost from using AI?
Yeah, I mean, research is huge, right? But beyond research, drafting is another category where people are getting a lot of productivity improvements.
Yeah.
And drafting clauses, drafting full documents.
Right. And so will that be an area that you continue to work on
Oh,
building out
yeah.
and building workflow. I mean, obviously you're doing it with Harvey. I said I was going to mention Harvey again, but here I am. But that's going to be an area of focus for you as well.
Yeah, we'll continue to focus on drafting. Absolutely. It's a really, really important opportunity for us. And there's so much that can be done there. Drafting
Yeah.
and reviewing also.
Yeah. What about on the corporate legal side? I got a quick summary, I guess, of this. I haven't seen the report that's coming out as of the point that you and I are speaking today. But again, I know that it found some significant benefits to corporate legal departments, generating, according to what I have here, $1.2 million in benefits and cost savings, and achieving a 284% ROI over 3 years. So are the factors different for corporate legal than for law firms in terms of the benefits that they're getting out of this technology?
Yeah, one of the things that I just hear consistently in talking to folks that are in-house is that they have so much more work to do than they have capacity to do it. And so these tools are really important to them in terms of like freeing up that capacity. So a lot of it, you can take the savings and you can use them however you want to use them, right? You can do the same amount of work with fewer resources, or you can maintain the same level of resources and do a lot more work. And so either way, that drives improvements in the economics of those corporate businesses. I do think that a lot of them are actually going to use the product to do a lot more work. But for those that want to drive savings, the savings opportunity is there as well.
Of course, you only get the benefit of that ROI if you actually use the product. And I'm wondering what you're seeing or what you're finding in terms of your own research regarding attorneys' adoption of these AI products, both in law firms and in corporate legal. How much are they getting used?
Well, in terms of what we've seen historically, fastest adoption rate of any product that we've ever launched in my 20 years here at LexisNexis. So pretty good uptake on them. And I think it's different than other products that have been launched just because, well, there's a lot more buzz around it, right? And secondly, the types of activities that these models are capable of doing are very consistent with the type of work that attorneys do. So the use cases are fairly evident to folks, which I think has driven an acceleration in the adoption rate in legal over previous products that have been launched.
Coming up in our interview, we're going to hear from Sean Fitzpatrick on how he believes smaller law firms are actually leading the charge on AI adoption. We also discuss the persistent challenge of hallucinations in legal work, and we get Sean's thoughts on what the future holds for legal AI and the profession more broadly. But first, please take this opportunity to learn about the sponsors who so generously support this podcast. Say farewell to outdated spreadsheets and say hello to a new way of managing your legal cases. Bill for Time, the leader in legal time and billing software, helps you easily track time, automate billing, share documents, and so much more within one platform. Take your practice to the next level and focus on what matters the most. Visit billfortime.com today to learn more. That's bill, the number 4, time.com. If you're still spending hours on research, drafting, or analyzing case files, it's time to meet Paxton. Paxton is the legal AI assistant built for firms of all sizes. It helps you find relevant law fast, draft with precision, and pull insights from hundreds of pages instantly. There's no long-term contract, and the free trial makes it easy to get started. Try it today at paxton.ai and let them know LawNext sent you. Welcome back to LawNext, where we're speaking with Sean Fitzpatrick, CEO of LexisNexis North America, UK, and Ireland. Before the break, we were discussing the strategic alliance between LexisNexis and Harvey, and also those impressive ROI numbers from the Forrester study on how AI use enhances productivity for law firms and corporate legal departments. Now I want to explore what all this means for the broader legal profession, including lawyers who aren't at the biggest firms, and dive into some of the persistent challenges around AI accuracy and hallucinations that continue to concern the legal community. Let's get back to that conversation. One of the interesting aspects of all the buzz around the LexisNexis Harvey partnership, a lot of the talk about the growth of Harvey over the last year in particular, is that these are products that are pretty much focusing on the largest law firms and the biggest corporate legal departments right now. If this is a horse race at all, this is like it's all taking place on Churchill Downs right now and not some local racetrack. Obviously, a lot of LexisNexis customers are not all just at big law firms and at big corporate departments. You have customers who span every kind of practice in the United States. What does all this mean for the rest of the lawyers who aren't at the big firms, who aren't at the elite firms, who aren't at the big corporate legal departments? Does something like this strategic alliance with Harvey ultimately have any benefit to more of the rank and file lawyers, or is it, to lawyers who don't have those kinds of access to the really expensive AI products?
Yeah, I mean, Harvey has been mostly focused on large firms, and it's I can't say exactly what they're going to do in the future, but I can say for our product, Lexis Plus AI, if we look at the adoption rate across the different segments, the segment that's growing the fastest is small law attorneys. So they're definitely seeing the benefits of the product, and a lot of them are solos, right? So they're very in tune with the economics of their practice, and they don't buy things unless they can really see the ROI on them, and they're gobbling it up at a really, really quick rate. So
that's interesting. I did not know that. There's also a perception that AI products are expensive. That's both the sort of the foundation models, but also vertical specific AI products tend to be pricey. Do you make it affordable for smaller law firms to use these products?
yeah, I think the prices are very affordable. Yeah, I don't see that being a big barrier. I think that in the larger firms, there are just some structural things that they extend the adoption process. So like security, for example, right? They've got really high security standards and data privacy standards, and they want to go through and do a lot of analysis and a lot of testing before they implement anything, as they should, right? But those things do take time, whereas solo attorneys, they can just make the decision and launch the product the following day. So that may be part of why we see that faster adoption in small law would be just fewer barriers.
Yeah, one of the concerns that lawyers have had in adopting AI early on was very significantly the fear of hallucinated results, and I think that's been alleviated to some extent, but not gone away entirely. And we still hear studies finding results that are erroneous in some way, whether complete hallucinations or whether they just get the take the holding of a case wrong or some other aspect of it wrong or a quote from a case wrong. Where is Lexis Plus AI in terms of addressing that issue of hallucinations today?
It's a great point, and I thought we'd be further along in this discussion by now, but we're not. And there are people that are keeping track of all these hallucinations that are in court filings. There are professional standards that lawyers have to meet, right? And when you are citing a case in court, even if it's not a hallucinated case, right, you still should have used the citator to check and make sure that it's good law. And you should have read the case to make sure that it's on point. And you should have checked the quote. These are all things that they're part of the professional standards of the profession. And so I think to some extent there's a lawyer problem here, right? Like some people, like a very small subset of the population of attorneys, right? We don't want to paint everyone with a broad brush here, but some folks are not adhering to those standards, and they're painting the profession in a little bit of a bad light around some of the stuff. And of course, it's gets picked up in the news and becomes maybe a bigger deal. obviously we're doing everything we can to eliminate hallucinations from the system. And then we also are giving people that access that they need to authenticate the content, right? So you should, we want to see a link next to every case in our results. And the lawyer should be able to click on that link and they can see the case law summary so they know what that case is about. They can see the head notes so they know the points of law that are discussed. They can see the Shepard's report to ensure that it's good law. So we want to give them a set of materials that's on point. There's no hallucinations in there. And then we need to be able to give them the tools to verify that, before I walk into court and put my reputation on the line, that I know that this is good law and this is an appropriate case to be citing. And so that's, kind of how we're building our system to allow lawyers to do that. But in order to do that, you have to have the authoritative material behind your system. And a lot of these systems are built for efficiency. They're not built for that accuracy. And I think that's a big challenge for some of those folks that are trying to develop legal specific applications.
Yeah, it seems pretty clear we're not going to be able to do anything about lawyers who want to short circuit the process of verification of citations and that sort of thing. I mean, Shepard's has existed long before Gen AI, and it's not that hard to do to verify a citation. But what is harder sometimes is to sift through some of the results when results are delivered from a legal research platform, whether it's you or West or RELX or any other. Studies continue to show that there have been citations that have just been erroneous in some way. Whether to call them hallucination may be an exaggeration compared to some of the stuff we saw coming out early on. But there are still mistakes. I mean, do you think this technology gets to the point where that's no longer an issue at someday?
I don't know. I can't, predict the future. I think it's becoming less and less of an issue. And as folks use different technology like context windows instead of being so reliant on reg platforms, for example, instances of hallucinations go down. So I think we'll continue to see refinement there. And as you get some distillation of the models also, so that you're dealing with smaller sets of information, you'll get to sets more accurate answers. Will you ever get to the point where there are no errors? I don't know. That's a pretty high standard, but I think you'll always have the ability to check. And that's an important process.
Yeah. What are you kind of focusing on now? What's between Lexis AI, Lexis plus AI, between Protégé? What are your sort of next steps in continuing to build out and develop those products?
Yeah, well, I talked a little bit about our vision and how that, translates into agentic workflows, right? So identifying activities along the attorney workflows and automating those, things that used to be done manually will now be able to be done, using generative AI. So we're looking at, continuing to develop out those different opportunities, doing it in a responsible way, doing it in a way that links back to authoritative materials. And that's really kind of our push going forward.
Yeah. Protégé was really just launched to general availability in January. What's happened since then? I mean, how's it gone in terms of launching it, in terms of pickup from customers, and how are they using it?
It's great. It's been really good pickup. One of the things well, first of all, there was a bunch of additional functionality that we released when we released Protégé in the core product, and so that's been nice. Things like full document drafting, preparing for a deposition, those types of functions. But we've also extended Protégé, right? So Protégé, it will be available in IntelliGISE in about 2 weeks. It's already available in Lex Machina, and so we're extending Protégé across the entire portfolio of our product suite. And so that extension is going really well, and it works contextually. So that, like, the things that we'll do in Lex Machina are different than the things that we'll do in Lexis plus AI.
You also announced in February plans to work more closely with OpenAI, the company that developed ChatGPT. What does that mean? What has come about as a result of that, or what might come about as a result of that?
Well, we've been working with them, and we've had OpenAI in our product since the beginning. We've been working with them since 2022, I believe. Um, and what this new partnership allows us to do is get earlier access to the models. And so we're going to have access to models that aren't generally available. And then we'll be able to work with our customers to develop solutions that we weren't previously able to develop. So that's a big part of it. Another big part of it is we'll have access to their engineers. So we'll be working not just with our customers, but we'll also be working with OpenAI engineers in terms of developing the products. But we're a model agnostic solution, and so we're really trying to solve our customers' problems, and we'll look at all the different models and the different problems that we're trying to solve and see which model addresses it most effectively. And that's what the model that we'll use. So we've got, OpenAI, we've got Anthropic, we've got Mistral, we've got a variety of different large language model tools that are built into our system. But yeah, we've got a closer partnership now with OpenAI, which will help us on the OpenAI front.
You've talked a couple of times about agentic AI. I wonder if you could expand a little bit more about what your vision is for how you could continue to develop that and deploy that across your products.
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about the automation of tasks that are done manually today. So I think that's an important part of it. I think that the way that models are operating today is much different than the way that they were operating even just a year ago. And so, like, if you think about the agentic capabilities in these models, and then you apply that to like a real world situation, like drafting a document, for example. So as an attorney, an attorney is drafting a document. They might start out with a list of sections for that document that they want to draft. And then, they've got their outline. Then they populate the outline. Then they do a review of the document. Then they send it over to somebody else to review. Then they get it back and they look at the comments and they decide which ones to incorporate. Now the models can do those things, right? These agentic models, instead of just drafting something, they're actually going through a process. And they've got planner agents that are like planning all these different activities, put together the outline, populate the outline, and so on. And then they're using different models to do those different activities based on which models do those activities best. So I see more of that type of thing. So the models are becoming more sophisticated in the way that they execute these tasks, and the results that you get back are better. And then another thing that I see changing there with agentic models is that the users are going to start to have some input into those processes. So they can say, okay, the tool will say, I put together this outline. What do you think? Right. And then the lawyer can put some thoughts into there, and then it can redo that part of the task. Right. So they're not just getting the outcome, but the lawyer is actually participating and making decisions along the way in the process to get to an answer that, is more tailored to what they're actually looking for.
Yeah. I know some people hate making predictions and some people love making predictions. Are you a hater or a lover of I mean, where do you see this going? Where do you think, how do you, well, you've been at LexisNexis for 20 years, as you said earlier. What are things going to look like there in 5 years from now?
Yeah, well, I think we're in a really good position when it comes to AI because, we have one of the world's largest collections of authoritative legal materials. We have, over 130 billion documents and records in our system, and we add 2.2 million to that every single day from 5,000 different sources, and that's hard to do. And the quality of these models is only as good as the grounding data that supports them. So I see, us continuing to develop solutions for lawyers, grounding those solutions in authoritative materials, developing them in a responsible way with the appropriate safeguards, around data privacy and security. And I think that's going to be a transformational change for LexisNexis over the next 5 years.
I have to assume that in your role, you speak to a lot of law firm leaders at firms of all sizes. And I'm just kind of curious, what you're hearing from them in terms of what they're excited about with regard to AI, but also what they're fearful of.
Well, they're excited about the capabilities of the tools. They're excited about the productivity improvements that they can see. They're excited about the improvements in the work quality. And they're worried about the authenticity of the results that they get back. They're really worried about security and privacy. I mean, they're handling the world's most sensitive transactions, are going through these law firms. This is really sensitive data. So they're very concerned that data is going to be handled appropriately. And so they want to make sure of that before they're going to, use any of these models. I think they're concerned about the apprenticeship model in the firms and how that's going to be impacted by AI. They're concerned about the revenue model and how does that work in the future. How does this impact the billable model, which is still the primary model that most law firms use?
Are you among those calling for the death of the billable hour or predicting the death of the billable hour?
I'm not calling for the death of the billable hour, but people have been calling for it my entire time at LexisNexis for 20 years, right? Yeah. Maybe this is the catalyst that drives the death of the billable hour. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But if it doesn't, then you have to think the billable hour is going to increase pretty substantially because lawyers are going to be able to produce a better product, right? The quality of the output's better. They're going to spend less time doing it. Like typically, if you deliver a better product, you can charge more. If you're charging by the hour and you spend less hours, then more money, fewer hours means higher rate per hour. So I think we'll see rates per hour go up if we don't see some sort of a modification away from the direct billable hour.
Yeah. Setting aside legal AI, I'm curious how you personally, in your work as CEO of LexisNexis North America, do you use generative AI in your own work, and how do you use it?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. I use it every single day. I use it personally and I use it professionally. And we're using it, across our business to make things more efficient. We've got lots of different tools that we use, like in the sales organization, for example. There are a lot of great tools that have come out. They're helping our salespeople be more effective at their jobs and more efficient at their jobs. But if I'm drafting an email, I'm starting with generative AI.
Yeah. Well, that was all the questions I had for you.
Can I ask you?
I use it all the time. I use it all the time.
Yeah.
I use it all the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing
I'm a big user.
from most people that I talk to as well, and I'm sure you are. People are adopting it very quickly.
No, I'll confess. I found out last night at I forget what time that I was going to be able to interview you today. So cut short do some research on some of the most recent news stories on LexisNexis, and get a full background on Sean Fitzpatrick. I mean things like that. I just cut short my research. It's great. It's so helpful to be able to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, very efficient.
So I love it. Yeah, very efficient. Well, anything else that you wanted to say that I haven't had a chance to ask you about, or anything else you wanted to mention?
Well, I think we're at a pivotal time in the legal industry. And I think things are going to dramatically change going forward. I can't say exactly how those things are going to change, but I think it's important the work that you're doing, kind of getting the message out there about what's happening now, as well as kind of having people share their visions for what it's going to look like in the future, because I think all of that contributes to a better future for our industry. So it's exciting times, and I'll certainly be reading your blog and watching your podcast to stay up to date on things that are going on in the industry. And as we have developments, Bob, I'll make sure you're among the first to know.
Well, you've got a good PR team behind you, so I'm not worried about that. Well, thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to share your own thoughts or comments, please message me. You can get me on LinkedIn or social media, or just email me directly, ambrogi@gmail.com. If you're a fan of the show, leave us a review. LawNext is a production of LawNext Media, and I'm your host, Bob Ambrogi. Hope you'll join us again next time for another episode of LawNext.